The Book of Ephesians. What is the Book of Ephesians about? Well, this is a book written by Paul from prison. He's writing from his first Roman imprisonment. He got thrown into Roman prison for about 2 years. You could read about that. His specific imprisonment, Acts 28, verses 16 through 31. But during that time of imprisonment, he wrote 4 books that we call the Prison Epistles. The chronological order of them is Ephesians, followed by Colossians, and then the book of Philemon, and then the book of Philippians. So the first prison letter that he wrote is written from Rome to the church at Ephesus, called the Book of Ephesians, and the key verse in it I would pick is Ephesians 1 and verse 3, which says, "You have been blessed with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places." So our blessings in the church age are spiritual, not material, as they were under Old Testament Israel. Not that God can't bless us materially if He wants to. That just is not promised. And beyond that, there isn't any further blessing God can give us. So we say, "Lord, bless me, bless me." And God says, read Ephesians 1 verse 3, where He says, "I've already blessed you with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places." So the book is basically articulating our blessings. And so chapters 1 through 3, there's not a single command given to the believer in that section. It's just describing one blessing after another that we have as individual Christians, chapter 1. But in about midway through chapter 2 through chapter 3, we've been blessed corporately because we're part of this new man that Paul calls called the church, where we are all knitted together as co-inheritors of the kingdom, equal standing in this age of the church. It's something that Paul calls a mystery, which is something that has never been disclosed, but now has been fully revealed. And then you get into the chapter 4, verse 1, and you see the word therefore. And when you see the word therefore in the Bible, you got to ask, what is the word therefore there for? And typically in Paul, it moves us away from doctrine into practice. By the way, this is how Paul sets up the book of Romans. Romans 1 through 11, doctrine. Romans 12:1, therefore. Romans 12 through 16, practice. You'll find that same structure in the book of Galatians and other books. So now that we're rich, what are we supposed to do? And it's in that section that Paul gives us about 38 commands to follow. So notice his teaching philosophy. First he tells us we're rich, chapters 1 through 3. Then he tells us how we're to behave, chapters 4 through 6. You know, if you realize that you are wealthy, you act differently, don't you? If you realize your identity in Christ, you behave differently. So he applies our riches to many different areas. He even talks about marriage in chapter 5. He talks about what we're to do as individuals. Chapter 4, how we're not to be people of filthy, coarse speech, but we should act consistently with our position. We should not be people that harbor anger towards other people because God has lavished upon us grace. And he moves into relationships like marriage, other relationships he discusses right on through chapter 6, key relationships that we engage in. Then the whole thing ends with the spiritual warfare chapter, chapter 6, verses 10 through 20. And there he's saying, because you're rich, you're a target. And isn't it interesting that people that are wealthy are targeted by thieves and predators and embezzlers? So we have been targeted by the devil because of our wealth. And so Paul tells us about our armor and how we're to put that on as the devil, we're to put it on primarily defensively as in the devil's turf in which we live as rich people, as the devil wages warfare on us. So I hope you'll enjoy the book of Ephesians. It's a tremendous reminder that we're rich. Chapters 1 through 3, and then now that we know that we are wealthy and rich, how are we to act? Chapters 4 through 6.